Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today we're going to be talking about some fall favorites. So I haven't done this video on my platform since 2020. That was a long dang time ago, and when I was going through to see how long ago I had done it and to look at the palettes that I had said before, I was like, holy cow, really? I haven't done this since 2020. We were in quarantine then. I was thin then because I had nothing better to do than go for 4 mile walks every single day, and I wish I was still in that place. So there's that. But if going through what I deem the best fall palette sounds like something that you're interested in today, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end, colorful beauty and self-care. I also work in the beauty industry as a field leader for Ulta Beauty, so I get a lot of education in my position, and I like to bring you that education here, but ultimately I'm just out here talking about makeup because I like to talk about makeup, and I think that if you're here, you probably also like to talk about makeup. So let's jump into what I think are the best fall palettes out there, and let's talk about it. Would you agree? Like I said in the intro, the last time I did this was in 2020. I have the list of the palettes that I said were the best in 2020, and while I still agree that these are some of the best in 2023, and I have almost every single one of them still. I think there's only one on this list, the Sleek Makeup Under a Spell, that I have decluttered. I still would agree with these, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't pull any that I had spoke about before. So I also didn't want to pull too many from any one brand. You all know that I could bring in 50 from Melt. I could probably bring in 50 from Natasha Denona. Not really. I mean, that's obviously sarcasm. But I have some here, and then I, of course, want to give some honorable mention because it's a rather new palette to me. I think that I can't put it in this list, but I know it's going to be an amazing fall palette. These are just, in my humble opinion, what I have in my collection, my favorite fall palettes, or my favorite fall color stories, I guess. If you disagree, that's totally okay. Makeup is just subjective. Like, you're going to think what you think about your favorites, and I'm going to think what I think about my favorites. It's okay to disagree, number one. Number two, some of these palettes you may not be able to get anymore. I did try to look up the ones that I thought you would be able to get, but some of them are not palettes that you're going to be able to get anymore. I just want to remind you that if they are in your collection, they are beautiful, wonderful fall tone palettes. So let's start with the one that is just on top in no particular order. I first have ABH Rose Metals. Now, y'all, this was not a favorite palette of mine, simply because of the color story. I felt like it looked very almost industrial when I did put it on my face, and I've just got natural light going on today, and I feel like I'm washed out. It did make some really beautiful eye looks, but it also looked kind of dirty on my face. But when I look at this from the perspective of color story, I really do feel like this is a beautiful color story for fall. I think that the fall, tones in here, like the deep, like terracotta orange, and some of the like really gem toned or jewel toned, like rosiness to this, the deep brown, the like crazy, like kind of grungy, almost green but not quite green gray, and then this tone up here. I mean, it really does have some beautiful fall tones in it, and I think that this is a beautiful fall time color story. While I don't 100% love this palette on my eyes, I could see me pulling for this during the fall time because of the color story in it. Now this one reminds me a lot of one that I did mention last time, and this is the Oma Beauty Black Magic palette, and I do think that this one is probably one of the ones that you cannot get anymore. This one reminds me of Subculture. As a matter of fact, I think when I reviewed it in my palette roulette, I said it reminded me of Subculture only maybe Subculture on crack. The pigmentation and blendability in this palette is so much better than Subculture's was. And these shades are all the shimmers, and they are, I mean, just crazy. What I didn't love about these shimmers is that they are very grippy, very glitter based, but so beautiful and reflective and pigmented. Look at that. That is crazy. This is everything that the Shifty Shade and Subculture wanted to be, but wasn't. So I think that this is a beautiful color story for winter, or for fall. I think that it is definitely a palette I could see myself picking up. I love this palette, and will be super excited to pull it in for some fall eye looks. The next one I have is this, and again, I don't know if this is one that you can get anymore, but this one is by Juvia's Place. Definitely a more affordable price point, right? This is the Tribe palette, and this one is just beautiful. I mean, if you don't look at it and see fall, I don't know what's wrong with your eyeballs, but beautiful yellows, beautiful grungy deep greens, beautiful oranges. This is just a really fall toned palette that blends beautifully, easy to use, super great affordability as far as price point goes. Big pans, so you can actually use these all over your face. If you wanted an orange blush, you could definitely get your blush brush in there. I think that what I love the most about this palette is there are more mattes than there are shimmers, as there's only 2 shimmers in here. So you can get some really great eye looks with this, and its variety of eye looks is exponential because most of it is mattes, even though it's only 9 pans. The next one would be the first of the Natasha Denona palettes that I pulled in here, and that is Natasha Denona Metropolis. Now, when I did this before, I didn't have this palette, but I think, you know, this bright pop of blue, besides that point, everything else in here is very, very fall toned. The oranges, the greens, the browns, even some of the more pops of color in here are definitely swinging towards that jewel tone, which is something that I look at when I think of a fall tone palette. It's going to have the oranges, the greens, the browns, but it's also maybe going to have some of the more jewel tones in it, like the Black Magic palette had for Oma Beauty. I just think that this is a wonderful 28 pen. You could have this palette only for fall and get everything that you need out of it. The one thing that I don't like about this palette is it does have an enormous amount of shimmers for the size of this palette. I think we could have had, you know, a couple more mattes in here, if I'm humbly honest, but I really love Natasha Denona's formula. She is my favorite. If you're new around here, you don't know that, but if you're not new, that's very widely known on this channel. And that is a palette that I am excited to bring back out and start using this fall. I'm not somebody who typically does makeup based on the season, but sometimes I forget about these kind of things until the seasonality of it comes about. The next one is newer to me. I think I picked it up, I think it was last year's holiday collection, and I picked it up actually after the fact, not even while, I picked it up when it went on sale, and not because I don't trust this brand, but because I kind of went back and forth on whether I needed it or not. So it is rather new to me, but I have used it. I did a palette roulette on it. I've done a palette roulette on every single one of these palettes, so I'll stick that playlist up in the cards for you so that you can hunt and find the specific reviews that I did on these palettes. But this one, I think in that review, I was like, this reminds me a little bit of Subculture, but this also shouts fall to me, and that is the Melt Cosmetics Bad Side Zodiac Earth palette. Of course, it's going to scream fall, right? I am a Virgo, so I did get the Earth palette because that is an Earth sign, and this is the palette. Like, fall is my favorite. Orange is one of my favorite colors on my face, on my skin, on the clothes that I wear. On my skin. That sounded weird. In the clothes that I wear, browns, burgundies, greens. I mean, say no more. This is the epitome of a fall palette, both the green and the burgundy being really deep jewel toned colors, and then the yellow and the orange and the shimmers to go along with it. I mean, like, beautiful, beautiful fall tone palette. This one, again, not my favorite palette in terms of like the review I did on it, but it is a beautiful fall tone. And I know they just came out with another one, and no, I will not be picking it up because I did not have a great time with this one. This is the Tarte Man Eater palette. This is, I think it's called After Dark. Yeah, Man Eater After Dark. And it is a beautiful fall tone eyeshadow palette. It's got those, jewel tone like green. It's got that deep burgundy. But I would say it doesn't go as jewel tone as I'd like it to go for this palette. And there is a lot of redundancy in this palette. And also, I didn't think that this was the best Tarte formula that I've ever had in my life. So I'm going to stick with their old school palettes and not pick up the new school palette. I know that I am an anomaly, like everybody else on the planet loves it. I just didn't have a great time with it, but it is a beautiful fall tone eyeshadow palette, and it does blend quite well. So in the grand scheme of, higher and maybe lower price point, higher end, but also blendability and ease of use, this is a great one for newbies. It's got a lot of colors in it. It's going to be better than Morphe, and it is a beautiful fall tone color story. The next one I have is one that may surprise you, but it's the Odin's Eye Flora Story palette. I think that in my palette roulette of these palettes from this collection, the one made by Betty Jean, I really felt like was the summer version of that palette. The one made by Lauren was like the spring version of that palette, and this one was more of the fall version of this color story. So the greens, the purples, this really just screams fall to me. And I know that some people said it was like a spring palette to them. It doesn't look spring to me. When I think of spring, I think pastels, but still bright, not muted like these are. And I really feel like these are muted more than they are bright. But we do have the jewel tones here. We have the muted purples. We have all the greens, the muted browns, this like olivey green also. Like, I really feel like this is a great fall color story for like bright and unexpected fall, but definitely fall in my humble opinion. Along those same lines, and I'm sure everybody would agree with this because I mean it is the nature of this palette and you definitely can't get this one anymore. It is the Lunar Beauty Moonspell palette. Like, who regrets not having purchased this? Because I regretted it and it came back out and I snagged it up. And now I regret not having purchased the second one, but I heard that the second one's not quite as good. This is what the front of the palette looks like. It came out for a holiday edition palette, and then this is the color story. Again, beautiful jewel toned colors. Even, some of these like brighter jewel tones are a little bit more muted. Again, with the muted, it's got the browns, the natural colors, the purples, which is something that I really think about when it comes to fall makeup. I think a lot of people think that way. I just think it's a beautiful palette. I don't think screams Halloween to me necessarily, but it definitely screams fall to me. Like, I look at this corner right here and I'm like, that would make a beautiful eye look. I think I need to dig into this palette again. These would make a beautiful eye look. Yeah, I definitely need to dig into this palette again. I'm really excited to be doing this video because it reminds me that there are so many fall palettes that I have in my collection that I need to pull out and start playing with again. But love this palette. Great fall, colorful fall color story. This one from Natasha Denona is a no-brainer. This is the bronze palette. I don't know of a single person that wouldn't put this, if they owned it, that wouldn't put this on their fall palettes list because it's just warm tone browns. It's just warm tone browns, got some orange in there, got some, really orangey browns in there. And then you have your pop of these two, like, kind of dusky, dirty colors that really help with the grunginess of what the fall season really brings to me. I think that that's really what it's either orange and brown and green, or it's really dirty, grungy colors, or it's jewel tones. Is that silly? Is that weird? What do you guys think fall is? When you picture fall, what colors do you picture? I would be interested to hear. But this is the epitome of the orange, warm tones that the leaves turn, which is why I think it falls on the fall palette agenda for usage during the fall time frame. So Natasha Denona Bronze. This is Melt Cosmetics 420 palette. And again, I mean, it's got leaves on the front of it.
No, it doesn't have leaves on the front of it.
It has, stuff. It's got one of those vernacular, is that what it's called? I finally remembered. Structured cardboard palette. I don't like to touch it, so I just try and touch the top of it and the sides. This is the color story. Like, again, with the shades that the leaves turn, like, this is the perfect depiction of maple leaves, in my humble opinion. And for a long time, because I don't do the dirty, that's what I thought was on the front of this palette. It's definitely not leaves. It's definitely not. But tell me this doesn't look like a maple tree, and the different colors of the leaves in the maple tree definitely is a fall palette, in my humble opinion. The last one that I have as part of the, 10. Was that 10? Oh, I guess I picked 11. I'm sorry, guys. That's okay. You're here for it, right? Would be the Sigma Untamed palette. And I did actually get ready with me with a friend with this palette, and we did two completely different eye looks, but both of them were very cool tone. Both of them were very fall-esque, but completely different colors. This looks like it's a warmer toned palette. It really does, but it actually sways very cool toned, in my humble opinion. And just by sheer usage of it, I know it leans a little bit more cool toned than it looks. With that said, I also feel like it is a great color story for fall. You have the kind of like jewel toned. It's got also some of the more like muted neutral tones. It's got a nice black in it. It's also got a nice white in it. It's got some great shimmers, some great matte. Sigma really does have a wonderful formula if you've not tried it yet. And I really think that this is a perfect rendition of a fall toned eyeshadow palette. I do think, I could be wrong, but I do think you can still get this on the Sigma website. I think I remember seeing it, but it also might have been Mercari. With that said, I wanted to give an honorable mention to the palette that I'm using currently in my Palette Roulette series, because it is a fantastic fall toned eyeshadow palette. I don't have a review on it yet, so I'm not gonna like put it out there as, one that I have reviewed and gotten a lot of usage out of. I just started using it, to be honest, both of these actually, to be honest, so I can't really give you my full-fledged thought process on it, but this is the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. And I think anybody would agree that this is a really great fall tone eyeshadow palette. I have used it. You guys can see that I have used it. It's not what's on my eyes today, but I do think that this will go down in history as the perfect eyeshadow palette for fall. And I also pulled in this one by Huda Beauty. This is the Love Fest Obsessions palette. I also think that this is a perfect fall tone eye look. And even as anti-fall as I was trying to get today, because this is what was on my eyes today, I do feel like it kind of leans very fall with the coral and the deep rusty purple. So those are two that I wanted just to mention as, potential candidates for next year's fall favorite list, even though they were honorable mentions this year, because I don't know 100% my thoughts and feelings on either one of them. I wanted to make sure that these were palettes that, even if I didn't enjoy the formula 100%, that they are still very good palettes and would be good for, some form of audience out there. Like when I think about the Tarte one, I didn't enjoy this palette as much as I enjoy old Tarte palettes, but I did enjoy this palette enough to know that it's a great color story and it would work well for new people coming into the scene because it builds well and it lasts what you need it to last, and it's beautiful. And I didn't love the color story of this one specifically on my skin, but it is a beautiful formula. It works really well, very ease of use as far as blendability goes, and it would be a beautiful color story for fall for those of you that maybe would love this kind of color stories. And I wanted to give you guys all, a plethora of price points as well. So we have like clear up to, $128, clear down to I think 16. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Do you agree with the palettes that I am bringing to the table as my favorite fall palettes? Again, this is just my humble opinion, but I would love to hear what your favorite fall palettes are if they differ from mine. And with that said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you and yours are well, that you're safe, that you're healthy, and that you're getting along as best you can, that you are enjoying the last bits of warm weather that we have here, and that you are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.